Hi, I'm Matthew Hersberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This podcast is devoted to helping ECPs succeed in myopia management, and we do that with motivation, inspiration, and education. And that is the focus of this episode. We have on regular guests for interviews so that you can hear their stories and learn from their successes, their failures, learn about their perspective, learn about what makes them truly unique because every myopia management specialist that I've met is truly unique, not just in who they are, their personality, how they practice, how they do consults, how they organize their staff. It's fascinating stuff. And my guest for this episode has become a series regular. He's been on a couple of times. He's very popular. I get comments and questions all the time. Dr. David Ng is here. He's the owner of Bayview Vision Care and the Myopia Clinic, which is one of the largest dedicated myopia management practices in Canada. He's a graduate of the University of Waterloo School of Optometry. Dr. Ng has been building his myopia specialty for over 25 years, with a particular focus on orthokeratology. He's a board member of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control, and he has a strong record in academic mentorship, public health advocacy, and clinical research. David, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's always good to be here. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the kind of premise for this episode kind of is like I don't know if it made it into our last episode where you were a panelist, but when we ended the recording, you said, "Matt, you didn't ask me about my story. I didn't get a chance to tell you my story." And the reason for that is I wanted to have some dedicated time to do it because you do have an interesting story, and I want the audience to hear all about it. But before we get started on that, if anybody has any questions for you about anything we discuss in this episode, how can they get in touch with you online?
Uh, Two easiest ways, email dng at themyopiclinic.ca and on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And the myopia mindset, if you're looking for more, myopiamindset.substack.com is where you can find episodes like this, bonus episodes, monthly or weekly articles, I'm sorry, and all sorts of great content. If you believe myopia management is the greatest thing in the world, you want to help us share that message so that more ECPs are doing it, then by all means, join us, myopiamindset.substack.com. All right, David. Why don't you give us an overview of what your practice looks like right now, just so we can use it as a basis of comparison?
Sure. So we have a 5 doctor practice right now that we pretty much do everything in terms of general practice. And all the other doctors do general practice. I specifically do only myopia. I only do general practice on Wednesdays, and myopia would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. The other docs in the practice, some do customized ortho case, some haven't even done a single ortho case, so they're kind of all over the place, each progressing at their own comfort level. Of course, I'm there to sort of mentor and help when they need it. And some of the docs have come from no myopia to now doing crazy customized work, which makes me proud because I can see their stuff as they bring it to my office and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Is this right? Can you look over this design before I send it out? So it's always a great time in the office. And, because all the docs do kind of myopia management to some extent, our break room is like, it's like a mini conference. The days that all the docs are present or a lot of the docs are present, someone will bring up a case or even a staff member will be working up a patient, you know, pop into the break room and say, patient is 26.1 millimeters. And everyone's like, whoa, we gotta get this kid help right now, right? So it's just that type of energy is infectious, especially when the practice is at a certain level where the staff are so well trained that, as they're doing the pre-testing, when they get the results, they know what's a red flag, right? And they
Right.
get so excited because now all of a sudden you can hear it in their voice. They are counseling mom and dads with, some urgency, right? And they're grabbing the first doctor that's in the hallways. Hey, this kid, what do you think we should do? Of course we have a protocol in place, right? I mean, just in terms of how I work in terms of the myopia clinic, myopia consults usually take about an hour. I don't
Mhm.
like to rush through it. I'm not necessarily with the family for an hour. They come into the office and they got all the pre-testing done. Then they're brought into one of the exam rooms and they get a myopia risk assessment. And there's a lot of tools out there. We've developed our own tool, and that's done with the data that they've gotten from the pre-testing, and then it's shown to the parents. The parents get a copy of it to take home, and then once that's done, they will come get me, and then I'll go into the room and then start my examination, and then my assessment and what the plan should be. And then usually from then, moms and dads usually sign on to some type of program there. If not, they usually get back to us within a day or so.
Mm.
If they, want to take home the information and digest it, that's great. We have a coordinator that does follow-ups, meaning they will gently text and email the next day, just saying, just want to connect. Do you have any extra questions that didn't come up yesterday? Just let you know that, if you want to start 1, 2, 3 XYZ therapy, we do have an opening in 2 days, at 4 o'clock after school or something like that. Just make it super easy for moms and dads to sign up. And
Right.
we've kind of developed that system that it's quite effective, I like to think. Our conversions are quite high, and we're not doing multiple visits. Of course, there's going to be a family that says, I don't want to do anything now. That's fine. But most families, I think, probably initiate some type of treatment or some type of program. And I think I think we had this conversation before. We're seeing the tide change. Like,
Mhm.
parents are educated, right? And
Right.
they know their stuff, and they're finding who does myopia control or management near me. Our name comes up, and they come in, and if I say, "Do you know about ortho-K?" They'll say, "Yeah, I know about it." And
Mm.
they'll even ask me like, I want this type of myopia spectacle lens. Like, I
Mm.
want this one." Like, "Oh,
It's the
wow." Like,
dream.
they even know the name, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, okay." So, sometimes their selection is right. I agree with them. Sometimes I disagree with them, right? So
Mhm.
you have to be prepared for that. So yeah, I think, given the way, all the systems that we have in place, training and just the energy, too bad you're not still a rep. You can come visit my office. I think you would fit right in. You'd be like
Yeah.
home, and be
I'd
so
love
much
it.
fun. So the myopia days are a lot of fun. They are. There are tons of kids everywhere, and a lot of follow-ups. And follow-ups follow-ups are so fun. The reason why they're fun is we love seeing this axial length getting under control, right?
Mhm.
Nothing that makes everyone happy. The staff are happy because they know how to read it. They know how to read progression, right?
Right.
They can tell me, oh, this one's getting away, or this one needs a little bit more help, right? But for the most part, as long as we kind of uh, cater to therapy and individualize it, the effectiveness is great, and we get fantastic results. Mom and dad are happy. So yeah, the myopia days are my happiest days, and my general practice days are my toughest days.
Yeah. Yeah, I love everything that you said, and I've so many questions, like, because a lot of what you referenced my rep days. A lot of what I encountered during my rep days were, I would find a doctor who, does myopia management, does ortho K, but they're having so much trouble getting their associate doctors like online and running, and I thought that was like very interesting where you have this like top-notch ortho K fitter, but the associate they hired, they're having a difficult time like getting them into the system and being a mentor as you described. And so I'm wondering if you can go more into that because like what is the secret sauce at your practice? Like is it just purely selection or is it identifying like the personality types? Is it being like having like a gentle approach? Like can you go more into that? Like how are you able to cultivate doctors and staff into the myopia program?
So let's start with the staff first, because staff is key. If you don't get the staff on board, it's not going to work, right? I mean, if the associate doctor's not on board, it's still going to work, right? Just won't work as nicely. So I think staff in the beginning, I would try to do as much training as I can, but like any other busy doc, you just don't have the time. The training is terrible. The level, the quality is terrible. you're cramming in thing at everything in like at a lunch and learn, and then there's no follow-up, right? Um, I think the staff program through the AOMC
Mhm.
is the easiest way for any doc to do it. Get the certified navigator program, go through the videos. You don't have to write the exam if you don't want to, but by the time they've done all the videos, I think your staff do want to write the exam, and it's fairly straightforward. Um, and I would extend that. Get all your staff involved, or at least more than one, because if you just have one staff member that is your coordinator, your go-to person, that person can feel very isolated, and they're not going to have anyone to bounce ideas off, because sometimes they're going to be, intimidated to talk to the doc if they have a great idea. So I would say minimum two in your office, and that way they'll help each other, right? They're going to, one person will have an idea and they'll say, "What do you think about this? That's great. Well, let's start it up. Let's print it up. Let's show doctoring." And then, usually by then it's really good quality. I say, "Yeah, let's go with it." So I would say minimum two staff members. Of course, my practice, every staff is certified. I even have remote staff is certified, right? They've gone through the certification because they got to answer the phone calls, right? They've got to field those calls of moms and dads calling and say, "Hey, here you guys do myopia. Like, I want to do ortho K. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Or, I want to do special glasses. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" And it doesn't look good if the person says, "Well, there's a special person for that. Let me put you on hold," as opposed to, "Absolutely, I can tell you about it. This is how the ortho K works. This is how we do it in our office, et cetera, et cetera." So I think it's huge advantage to get the whole staff certified. I know it's a big investment, but it's going to pay off dividends like very, very quickly.
Right.
Because, especially if you're the type who believes in cross training, right? So sometimes my opticians do the front. Sometimes I don't have a cross trainer. They're on break, or, they're doing something else. Then a front desk person jumps into cross to pre-test, right? So they're able to carry on the appropriate conversation at whatever area in the office they're working at. So if you can certify all your staff again through the AOMC program, that's amazing. Um, and it's just going to snowball from there, right? Because once I did that, the awareness, the conversations, even the booking habits, the booking schedules all started to change, and change for the good in terms of encouraging myopia consults, right? Depending on which staff member I had, we would I'd have a staff member that gave out lifestyle handouts to every single patient, every single person that came in the office, regardless if you're
Mhm.
here for a myopia consult or just like a regular checkup, or if you're a senior. They would get this lifestyle handout of how to preserve children's eyes. And, that would start the conversation. Like, the seniors would say, "Oh, like, what is this about?" And
Hey.
trust me, they all have grandchildren, right? Or everyone's
Yes.
got children in their lives, okay? And then all of a sudden, we would see a child in the office and, how did you hear of us? She goes, "My grandmother. She told me I have to
Mhm.
come." Okay, great. All right. So all these little things that I think staff initiates, um, would not have happened if they didn't have that level of training and they understood the urgency of what we're trying to do and how important it is, right?
Right.
So that would be the staff part. The associate part, it's kind of like they have to get bit, and then they're almost and then they're kind of addicted to it. So
Mhm.
they've gotta have an experience where they've actually made a difference in a family's life. So what I usually try to do, or if I have the opportunity, is I'll try to do a case with them or a child with them and say, "Hey, come here, look at this. Here's a 7-year-old, mine is 2, here's the axial lengths, this is mom's history, this is dad's history, you know, what's your worry level right now?" They don't know. "Oh, I guess we should do something, right?" Then we go through the myopia risk assessment. I go, "Well, what do you think right now? Ooh, this is bad. This could go bad really fast." I go, "Exactly." So there's some urgency, right? How would you want to uh, take care of this case? And if they're kind of they did the ortho K courses, they're a little certified, they're ready to go. I go, we're going to do this one together. Or if it's spectacles, I said, you're going to work with one of the opticians because all the opticians are good, and you're going to go through that together. Right. So I kind of share cases. Right. And whether I hand off the case 100% or we work it together, it's great. And when they see the difference they're making in that child's life. So the 4-month check, the 6-month check. If it's an ortho K, it's a lot easier, right? We design the lenses. They come in for training. A child wears the lenses. Next morning, they come in the office, take off the lenses. They can see the chart. They're almost down to 2025, 2020. Mom is happy. Dad's happy. They think the doc is like a miracle worker. It doesn't get better than that, right? And when the
Right.
associate is in the room and they feel that positive energy and they say, wow, like mom and dad are so happy. This kid is super happy. And it only gets better because then they come back a week later, you know, if everything's right, they're 2020. And I always ask the children, now, will you give me the lenses back and go back to glasses? No, absolutely not. Right. And you ask mom and dad, how's this week been? Is everything good? And they're so happy because, number one, the child's out of glasses. So, in terms of lifestyle and sports, it's excellent. Swimming is great. They know they're getting good, care for their child because we spent a lot of time on the initial assessment, right? We didn't in and out in 15 minutes. You were with us for an hour with follow up calls and emails afterwards the next few days if needed, right? So hopefully they can see, oh, this place is a little bit different than some of the other places that I have gone to in the past. And then, the follow-up appointments, 4 months later, we'll do another ortho K check. Kids doing great. Have a look at those axial lengths, rock solid, no movement at all. We'll do another check, another 4 months. Same thing again. Maybe a little bit axial length increase, but that's a metropic increase. That's cool, right? And then here we are a year later. It's the same script.
Mm.
But use any of these projections tools, and Ocumetra, you pick which one you're comfortable with, they'll tell you what the escalation of that script's gonna be after year 1, year 2, year 3, and your treatment is showing that, "Hey, myopia, treatments really work. We're really helping this child." And I think once the associate sees it, so it's not overnight, it's probably a process, probably about a year, year and a bit. And then once they kind of say, "Oh, I get it now. I know why Dave gets so excited because we are actually changing this course of this child, right?" And
Right.
then, and then they get on the ball and they get excited, and it just like breeds more excitement. And then once they're on their way, I'm just there just to guide them, just to help if they need it. But by then, they're doing their own research. They're reading when they're at home, they're reading articles, they're looking at videos. They're asking me, "Hey, do you think I should go to like boot camp this year?" Absolutely, right? Or do you think,
Right.
"Oh, should I join AOMC?" Absolutely, right? When they come to me asking, say, should I do now? Then I know they're good. They're on their way. And one of my associates works in another office, and that office dabbled like
Mm.
most colleagues, and you know what I'm talking about, in
Yeah.
myopia. And they went from doing a couple CRTs a year, and here we are 2 or 3 years down the road. She has managed to get the principal to buy a Medmont. She has got the principal to purchase customized Ortho-K design software, and she's doing her own work up at that other location, and she's killing it because everyone
Mhm.
in that area doesn't do custom. She's the only doc doing custom, and she's getting cases where parent would say, "Well, I was told by my doctor I can't do ortho K, but
Right.
I heard that from another parent who had a child with a really high prescription or stigmatism that you can do it. Can you do it?" And then she'll get excited, she starts designing, and then she'll bring the design to my office and she'll say, "Dave, look at this. Will this work?" I go, "I think it's gonna work." And then she'll order it, put it on the eye, and then next morning, lenses come off, kid's down to 20, 30, and I get a text on my phone. She goes like, "Jackpot, the kid's doing amazing," right? And when an associate hits that level, when a doc hits that level, they're on their own. Like,
Right.
they don't need me anymore, right? So, and there's a lot of stories like that, right? So, I do enough. local talks for AOMC that, a lot of the docs know what I'm about, and some of them say, "You know what? I wanna do some of the cases that Dave presented because it sounds really cool." And they reach out to me, and I invite them to the office, and I'll spend a couple hours with them showing, how deep they wanna get into customization work, and for the most part, most of them, get into it, and they start doing their own, right? And they start their own
Right.
customized journey, which is amazing, amazing. So it
Yeah.
just cool, cool
I love
stuff.
the idea of, like, infectious excitement that is present both in your staff and your associate doctors' examples. Like, I definitely know what that's like. I grew up in, a pioneer ortho practice where that we had that same level of infectious energy because you got to see firsthand it was changing kids' lives for the better, and I remember being from my rep days, for example, one of my, favorite accounts, but it was right towards the end before I got let go. He had some, problematic issues with trying to get started with Ortho-K. The practice owner was losing patience. He was trying the J&J lens for the first time, and when I got into the situation, he had already started the process, and on paper, David, this patient was not a good candidate.
Right.
Sensory issues, all sorts of touching the eye kind of problems. But once we got the lenses on that kid, and after their first night of wear, it was incredible. I had to keep myself from like jumping up and down and like patting the doctor on the back in the office because I was like, "You did it, man!" Like, and he was like so excited. And that's why I love what you had said, particularly because the more people sharing in that excitement, right? Like, this is why going to a movie in a movie theater is a different experience than watching at home for many reasons. Like when the crowd enjoys and shares that energy, it creates a more meaningful experience. So I love everything that you said on that. It's such a great infectious energy is such a great way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's not every day is not like wins and celebrations all the time, right? I mean, let's be
Yeah.
realistic, right? There's some days, like, I kind of shake my head at my design and I go, "I think I'm an idiot. Like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore," right? It's not supposed to do that, right? So but more wins than losses, so that's the key thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, let's go into your origin story because I can't imagine that you just, started and all these things fell into place for you, all these important puzzle pieces that have become obstacles for a lot of doctors, like staff turnover or finding that myopia navigator or getting an associate on board or convincing the practice owner, for example. So, like, I can't imagine you had this success right off the gate, or maybe you did, and you can share with us that example. But how did you get started in ortho and myopia management?
So, yeah, you're right. Every dog's got a story and it's usually personal. So for me, it started, with my eldest son. So, like any other he was 3 years old at the time, and like any other doc, your kids spend a lot of time in your practice because it's natural. You're a small business owner, you spend a lot of time there, and, he was in my office, and he was playing around with the exam chair, and he jumped on the exam chair, and I said, "Wait a minute, let me check something." Turned off the lights, brought out my retinoscope. I was gonna read him very quickly, expected to see Plano. Remember, he's 3 years old, expect to see Plano, and Matt, I had no reflex. I don't know if you know what that means, but that means there's a high script somewhere there. Like, there was no
Mm,
reflex coming at me, and I'm looking at my retinoscopy, and retinoscope, and I said, "Wait, maybe this like the mirror went out or something like that." And I tried, still nothing. And I went to another room, grabbed another one, still nothing. Then I grabbed my lens bars and, I'm reading my son and minus one, minus two, minus three, minus four, minus five, minus six, minus seven. I started seeing a reflex. I neutralized them at minus 10.
okay.
Yeah. So you can imagine what's going through my head. Now remember, I don't think this is 2002.
Hmm.
Okay. 2002. The reason why I brought that year up because important. So then, and I read it the other eye, and it was like -6. Now, what do we know about the myopia world? not too much in 2002. Okay. So I call my wife. I don't know if you know, but my wife's a pediatrician. She's at the
Oh,
hospital here, sick kids in Toronto. So I call my wife and I go, "You're not going to want to hear this, but Jonathan's like a minus 10." And my wife's a high mile, so she knows what that means. And she goes, "No, you probably didn't do it right." I go, "I hope I didn't do it right." So
right.
she calls down to head of ophthalmology at Sick Kids, gets him in the next day. You know, when it's your child, you're pulling the strings. See the chief of staff, and he starts reading. And in my heart, I'm saying, I hope I screwed up. I hope I screwed up. And I see him move the lens bars. And I go, oh no. What I got is right. He's going to be a minus 10, minus 6. So, it's kind of like, oh, I didn't screw up as a doctor, but as a parent, I didn't want to see this being sort of verified and confirmed. So then he confirmed the prescription, wrote out the script. We had a conversation. What do we do? I think he arranged for some genetic testing. And obviously, the question is, so this is always going to get worse. What can we do to slow it down? We don't have any treatments available, and there's no evidence that any treatments work. Okay. It's from the top children's hospitals in the world. And he's right, because Adam's study didn't come out till 2006. So we really didn't, unless you are a practitioner, which was way ahead of the curve. But being a teaching hospital, you can only treat according to the data or what the studies tell you. And there was no real evidence that they could recommend. So I said, well, okay. So that was a very depressing day. Fast forward a week, I said, you know what? I'm going to bring him to Waterloo, my school, see my professors. There's got to be something we can do. Right. So, by then I was already got glasses, right? He's a very cute kid, but really thick lenses, right? I take him to Waterloo. And there's a number of professors, the pediatric professor, the BV professor, and he had all these assessments. He went through a lot of tests. He was a really happy kid. It was like all these machines. He's great. He was so happy to try them out. And it was the same conclusion. There's really not too much we can do. We can do some therapy to make sure he doesn't become amblyopic, but there's really nothing we can do to curb the myopia. And that kind of, here we are. And then on the way home, because Waterloo's an hour drive from, where we live, my wife looks at me and she goes, "This is your wheelhouse. You better fix this." Right? She's
Wow.
not she's not I, right? She goes, "This is your wheelhouse. You better fix this." And prior to that, man, I did no myopia management. Like, I was general practice and I was happy and that's all I wanted to do, right? And I said, "Okay, now I've gotta start." And, at that time, if you did a Google search, like, it was almost 0, like, almost not like, nothing comes up, right? And you try to look for talks, you try to look at any meeting of anyone who's gonna talk about controlling myopia. 0, nothing. No one talked about that stuff. We were into diseases at that time. Let's treat glaucoma, anterior segment disease, uveitis. Everyone was into therapeutics. That's what the transition was. So, fast forward, obviously the script's getting worse. Thank goodness the genetic testing came out negative. There's no syndrome associated to his high myopia, which is what I was worried about. But, as a parent, you felt helpless because there's nothing I can do. And as an eye doctor, I felt even worse because this is my wheelhouse. I couldn't do anything. So, fast forward a number of years and, I know Dr. Chow, so we connected with Dr. Chow. He fit him with Ortho K lenses. He wore them for a couple years, but couldn't really tolerate it for comfort and his lifestyle. So then I ended up fitting him with multifocal soft contact lenses. I think we even tried atropine at one time, but side effects. And by then he's in high school. I just started high school. And then, I think it was grade 7 or grade 8, and he wakes up one day, he says, "Dad, I can't see out of one of my eyes." I go, "What?" I thought he was joking. "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I can't see. If I cover this eye, I can't see anything." Great. Rush to the office. dilate him. He's got a huge macular hemorrhage, right? Like, we
Wow.
talk about these cases all the time, but it's different when it's your kid,
Yeah.
right? So I'm on the phone with my retinal doc, and I said, "This is what I got, and, I've got great relationship with my retinal docs," and she goes, "Bring him in right now." So I canceled my whole day, bring him in, and, I don't know if you've ever been into a retinal practice, but the average age is, like, white hair,
Mm.
and there's this little kid or, no, he's grade 7, so there's this young teenager sitting there with his dad. It doesn't make sense because people are trying to, like, "How like, are you here with your parents? Like, why are you here?" And no, it's for him. And, she confirmed it, and he got his first injection. Yeah,
Wow.
as a grade 7, he got his first injection, and we're monitoring. So the vision, when he couldn't see anything, was like 2100, 2200, and, thank goodness the injection was very effective and got down his vision got back down to maybe 20/40, which is where it was before all this happened. Because that eye now is like a -14, -15 now, okay? So, that was that, and then, further down the road, again, he wakes up, he goes, "Dad, I'm seeing, like, flashing lights, like,
Oh my
this is not
gosh.
good."
Yeah.
Back to the office, dilate him, now he's got retinal holes in the periphery. Call my retinal person, she says, "Send him down." We send him down, he gets lasered right away, right? Um, so how old is this guy? 13 now? 14? Yeah, 13, 14, and he's had injections and laser, okay? Then we fast forward a little bit, and maybe a couple years ago, he again says, "Dad, same eye again, I can't see." Same process again. Go see, check verified in the office. Now I got all the fancy tools, right? Now I've got the optos, I got everything. I got OCT, send all the images down, boom, gets another injection. Uh, Vision now is kind of restored. It's not as good as before, but it's functional. Thank goodness his other eye is 20/20. He's now 27 years old and has had ICL, so he no longer wears glasses or contacts. He's had the implants, which has been a game changer for him, but that doesn't change the fact that he's still at high risk for retinal disease and eye disease, right? And he's got a lot of thinning of his eyes and a lot of stretching back there. And, I cringe every time I look at his retinas, hoping that I don't find anything new, right?
Right.
So that kind of like, that's how I came into myopia. And then so I started getting into the ortho K because my son was in it and called the lab. And, the lab says we do CRT, so you get your certification, et cetera, et cetera. Did that for a number of years. Then realize excuse me, realized that that was kinda limited because once you start getting Ortho K, all these other cases start coming in, and "That's out of the range, I can't do it, I can't do it."
Right.
Uh, that's where I kind of connected again with Dr. Chow, and you learned about Ortho Tool, and then, kind of took years to master that to a level that now I'm not afraid to try anything. Um, so it was a lot of ups and downs done overnight. But, I mean, I'm a little older and, at my, not super old, but you start thinking about like, how am I going to wind down? Right. Like I'm about 10 years from winding down. Like, do I want to take on new things? And my son tells me, as an adult that, you know, I live in fear thinking that I won't be able to see in the future. Like, imagine if your child tells you
Yeah.
that, right? And he says, that's why I live my life the way I live my life, meaning, uh, I would want him to go into optometry, but he realizes he needs good vision, so he went to something else that doesn't require great vision. Um, he kinda lives life to the fullest in terms of activities that require, good visual function. In the planning event that when he doesn't have that anymore, he can say, "I've done those activities, I'm glad I did it when I had good vision." And that kinda struck me really hard as his father that his mentality is shaped like that because of what he's gone through. These scares of vision loss and the recovery and the healing, and every time he has this, it doesn't heal back to as good as before. So, I kind of changed my mindset a little bit. I said, "You know what? In the next few 5, 10, 15 years that God gives me, I'm just gonna try to help as many kids as I can, because I don't think any child should have that type of frame of mind where I'm gonna do stuff today because I might not be able to do it tomorrow because I can't see. Like,
Right.
that's terrible feeling to have as a child and to hear as a parent. So that was kind of the driving force that made me pivot from slowing down to speeding up. And,
Right.
I don't know if you've, seen some of the stuff that I do and the work that I do for, be it AOMC or, traveling or speaking, my calendar has gotten kind of packed to the point where my wife's saying, "No, you can't do things every night. You can only do, like, Wednesday night. That's it. That's the only night I'm giving you." I go, "Okay, fine." Or
Yeah.
like, yeah, so that's kinda been my journey. It's interesting, definitely motivated by what my child went through, who's now an adult. And, I've had good mentors along the way. And I would say I have to give a lot to the AOMC organization, right? I mean, they are like your second family. Like, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, if you've never joined, come to VBD and you'll know what I'm talking about, right? There's
Right.
gonna be everyone there that only wants you to get better at your game. There's no agenda,
Right. Right.
and that you don't see that at other meetings, right? So, yeah, that kinda brought me to where I am now. So, I'm not the type of guy to say no, especially if you need help or, you want some advice or you want me to sort of help you launch your myopia practice or, give me an idea on this case. I'm kinda stuck. Sure, absolutely.
Anyone has questions for you, they wanna know more about VBD or AOMC, get in touch with you directly, how can they do so?
So email dng@themyopiaclinic.ca or just find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And, for my part, with the myopia mindset, this is my main gig. This is how I support my family. And if you are interested in learning more about what we do here at the myopia mindset, if you got anything from our conversation, if you found that inspiration, motivation, education that I described earlier, then please consider becoming a paying subscriber. You can do so on our Substack, the cost of which is $12 a month, which I always say, hey, that's basically the cost of a cup of coffee each and every week. And if you would buy me a cup of coffee to have on amazing guests like David and to just nerd out about this stuff, then please consider becoming a paid subscriber. You can do so on our Substack, myopiamindset.substack.com. We are doing articles every week. We are doing episodes with bonus content you won't find anywhere else. And we have a new series of episodes that we've started doing where if you have questions and want to interact with us, we're building a community around this thing. So Carrie has been spearheading that with us, and we got some great content. Think we're calling it the mindset mailbag, where we'll just answer your questions directly. So definitely look into that. Myopiamindset.substack.com is how you do so. David, thanks again for coming on. I can't wait to have you back. All right. So thanks again, David. And for everybody else, we will see you at the next one.